Hello, my name is Archie Dunlop, and this is Talking Astrology with Archie on Saturday, March the 25th, 2023. Today, I want to talk a bit about coronations. Not because I'm into the royal family, but because it's in the news. And we do know that King Charles III of England, of Britain, United Kingdom and Northern Ireland, whatever, is going to be crowned king on May the 6th. So that's pretty soon. And I wanted to look at the astrology of that moment when the coronation happens. Now, you could argue that he's already king, so it doesn't really matter. We should look at the chart for the moment his mother died. Yet, certainly in Britain, the coronation is a big deal. It's a symbolic moment where the crown is placed upon the king's head and he takes on the full mantle of his responsibility. So I think looking at that moment astrologically could be interesting. I should say that Queen Elizabeth I used an astrologer, according to the legend, to predict the time of her to predict the date and time of her coronation. It's often noticed that in her chart that the moon was void of course. In other words, that it had made its last aspect before leaving the sign. Yet the astrologer, called John Dee, was able to sort out the timing to create an aspect to something called the part of fortune, and he was able to avoid this void moon. Anyway, that is something I'll be talking about, the coronation of Charles III. I also want to think about how this is going to relate to Prince Harry. I was going to look at Meghan as well, but let's look at Prince Harry. And see how this coronation is affecting him, because I know that there's a lot of news flow about whether or not he's going to show up to the coronation and whether it's a good idea. You know what? I think he should not turn up to the coronation. I don't think it's going to be good for him. I think it could be bad for his mental health. Anyway, before I do that, I am going to look at today's stars for Saturday, March the 25th, 2023. So let's see what we've got. The moon, there's the chart. The moon continues to move through Taurus, and you'll see it's making a sextile to Neptune. Now the moon is starting to lose its power at this stage. We may feel as the day progresses that it's really difficult to get things done. We might try to apply ourselves to something, but it just doesn't happen. Or maybe someone makes us a promise and it seems completely in the bag, but it just doesn't happen. So don't be surprised if things don't happen, and avoid making promises, because it may be very difficult to keep your promises. While all this is going on, we notice that Mars has now gone into Cancer, and you'll see that Mars is 0 degrees 5 minutes Cancer. So, and as I said yesterday, this is really important. Mars on a cardinal point, 0 degrees Aries, brings into the world a lot of aggravation, assertiveness, warlike behavior. It's in the air. So don't be surprised if there's a lot of tension. When you look at the news, people are going to be going crazy. This is what we can expect with Mars. But there's something interesting going on here, that Mars is making a square to the Sun-Neptune midpoint. Now there's Neptune at 25 Pisces, there's Sun at 4 Aries, and so Mars is actually squaring this point. Now this does weaken Mars. It it's going to give the impression of perhaps having good intentions, but not being able to see it through. And when I was reading what the German astrologers Reinhold Ebertin and Witter said about Mars on the Sun-Neptune midpoint, they were quite into sexuality. They referred to it as something connected with impotence, not being able to perform sexually, all that kind of stuff. I didn't quite see that, but that is a view on Mars on the Sun-Neptune midpoint. So from a romantic point of view, maybe you mustn't get your hopes up and you mustn't overpromise. So that's something to consider with Mars on the Sun-Neptune midpoint. So overall, I think it's a day when we might have high hopes, when we might have great plans, but I think it's going to be actually quite difficult to see them through. So if you are planning on something, maybe you should wait until tomorrow, wait until Sunday. As far as the coronation is concerned, here is a chart for the coronation. Now, I don't know exactly what time Charles III is going to be crowned. I'm assuming it's midday. I think it's going to be around midday, but we don't know for sure. So what are the main themes about this chart? Well, the moon is void of course. And that was a problem, just as I was saying, with the coronation of Elizabeth I in the 16th century. The moon was potentially void, and the chart had to be fixed using the part of fortune. Now, if this chart was accurate, and Charles III really is going to be crowned at noon, we can actually see that the moon is applying to a square of the part of fortune. So using John Dee's logic, we don't have a void moon. Nonetheless, the moon in late Scorpio, all things being equal, is perhaps not in a great position, though the moon is in mutual reception to Mars. By that I mean moon is in Scorpio and Mars rules Scorpio. And Mars is in Cancer and the moon rules Cancer. So that's not so bad. So I'm thinking it's not a dreadful chart. I don't think it in itself portends that the monarchy is going to be in terrible trouble. But it's not a terrific chart. I suspect that the coronation itself, once it happens, is going to be a bit of a nothing, or as they say, a nothing burger. I don't think it's a big deal. I don't think there's anything major going on. But I think it could be a big deal if Harry turns up. Not because we're going to see anything going on necessarily, but because of Harry's psychological health. So let me show you what I mean. So I'm going to put up Harry's chart. There's Harry's chart. He's a Virgo. Now that is an important thing. Let's look at his Virgo planets. He has got Mercury in Virgo at 5 Virgo, and he's got the Sun at 22 Virgo. So if we create a bi-wheel, so there's Harry's chart in the center, and there is the coronation chart, and we see a couple of rather disturbing things. This is the lowest point on Harry's chart. He's got the moon in Taurus, and there we have the IC. That's a point in the chart connected with the family, and here we see at the time of the coronation, Sun and Uranus are on the IC. I think right now that Harry is experiencing a certain amount of turmoil. I think he's not experiencing much stability in his life. I think that he's beginning to feel that the ground on which he's standing is beginning to shake. And if he goes to the coronation, it's not going to help matters. So that's something he needs to sort out. Maybe he and his therapist and his wife need to come together to sort that problem out. And so that Sun-Uranus conjunction at the time of the coronation, it's destabilizing, because that midpoint of Sun-Uranus hits the most personal point on Harry's chart. I think he's going to feel quite alone in some respects. And there's another thing going on which is kind of worse. There's Harry's Mercury. Harry's got his Mercury at 5 Virgo, and shortly before the coronation, Saturn at 5 Pisces made the opposition to his Mercury. Now, very simply, if you've got Saturn opposition your Mercury, you could have negative feelings about the world. And I think that in the run-up to the coronation, for whatever reason, it probably has nothing to do with the coronation, but Harry is going to be under the weather, and he's going to have very negative, introspective thoughts. And to put it brutally, he may feel depressed. And going to the coronation, with or without Meghan, is going to exacerbate this. So I think over the next month, I think there are concerns about Harry's mental health. There are concerns about Harry's self-esteem. And, matters are made worse by the fact that his Mercury in his natal chart is in the 8th house. The 8th house is, quite emotionally fraught. And he has Saturn opposition this. So I think that, as Harry would himself say, he's really into self-healing, and that's what he needs to do. And what Harry should not do, I believe, is turn up to the coronation. Bad idea. Yeah, it might be useful from a, publicity point of view, career point of view, but Harry needs to think about his mental health, and those around Harry need to think about his mental health. And when you look at Harry's chart, really, he should give the coronation a miss. Okay, that's all I'm going to say for today, and I will talk to you tomorrow on Sunday.